We all understand the type of climate that we're dealing with. We're dealing with multiple offer situations.
I'd love to know sort of what's your why? What makes you tick? Why are you so successful?
Have a dialogue with your lawyer. Have a dialogue with your agent.
Both sort of passionate about sort of what we do.
Again, vet your agent to make sure that they're experienced and they're local. I like that idea.
No excuse to miss it on Saturdays from 8 to 9.
That's right.
WBZ.
And now, the show that gives you the latest and most relevant housing market news. Real Estate Radio Boston with financial expert Rick Shearer and legal professional Ali Alavi.
We talk about this project a lot on the show. We have a lot of Boston brokers that are in here, and this is such a staple that's going to be in downtown Boston. Let's talk a little bit about the area in which or how this whole thing came about. I mean, you're building on what used to be a hole in the center of Boston.
So that's what's been most exciting about this project. This is the center of the city, an area that I think any Bostonian is excited to see development. It was the hole created by Vornado, and now you're going to see tremendous economic vitality. In the next 3 months, we're going to have 1,000 people start to move in and call downtown Boston home.
Just to put it in perspective for listeners that may not know what we're talking about. We're talking about the Millennium Towers, and we're also talking about the area in the city called Downtown Crossing. I mean, this area was not the most ideal area in the city, and really the gamble that Millennium Partners has made in that area has completely changed the landscape. Not only that, but it also has revitalized that entire neighborhood, which is, to me, that's probably the biggest compelling story there.
No question. Millennium has done this before. Back in the early 1990s, they developed Lincoln Square on the Upper West Side of Manhattan. An area, if you can imagine, was not desired to live residentially. Now, 20 years later, there's probably not any more expensive real estate in the country. So Millennium looked at the public infrastructure, public transportation, access to the common, access to the waterfront, and a financial district behind as actually an ideal place to develop. And they started it in 2001 with the Ritz-Carlton. They put a 5-star flagship hotel with 360 residents. They followed that up with Millennium Place, and now the tower is the crown jewel. It is the piece part that brings everything together, and now you'll start to see that critical mass and density of residents start to bring more restaurants, more retail. We have a grocery store that opened up a year ago, Roach Brothers, which has impacted everybody's life.
Absolutely.
And you missed one, too. One Charles was such a great project for you guys as well.
It was. That was the first time we had shifted away from the hotel model. We looked at residents that wanted to live in an all condominium community, have great public amenity space, and that was, once again, followed up by Millennium Place, where we continued to improve and listen to our buyers. And once again, now the tower, which Ali got the opportunity to don a hard hat, walk into the building, see this amenity space for the first time as we unveiled it for the brokers in Boston that have been such a big part of this development, real estate attorneys, because if the whole city wasn't behind this, you can't sell in excess of 400 residents before a building ever opens.
Over $1 billion in sales?
So we just achieved over $1 billion in sales. This is a very diverse group of buyers coming in. 3/4 of them are from the Boston metro area, which we're very excited about, and you hit every age demographic.
No one wants to swing a hammer. There's a really small percentage of people that are looking for fixer-uppers, people like me who haven't seen a hammer in a year.
Would you agree with that, though? Yeah, Gary, would you agree that the majority of clients that you service want turnkey solutions, or is it 50-50? What is it?
It's actually more 70-30. 70%, they're busy people. They want to go in. They want to turnkey, move on with their life, and end it. The other 30%, they're willing to do some sort of renovation, I find, with at least my clients. Maybe a bathroom or a kitchen, but usually it's later on. they want to live in the property, and I advise them to live in the property for around 6 months to a year, see how they use the property, and think about how they want to renovate it to their desires.
Do you find yourself trying to convince your clients not to buy a particular property? Because, I mean, we are dealing with a pretty crazy market.
Yeah.
I think buyers, by their very nature, are very emotionally charged because I think you'll agree that you're probably working 10, 12, 15 times more than you were before, just as a result of the fact that there isn't enough inventory.
Sell every person 4 houses these days before an offer sticks sometimes.
Right. Do you find yourself sort of trying to calm them down and say, okay, slow down. This doesn't meet your needs?
It's an emotional roller coaster, isn't it?
Absolutely. I mean, for example, last Saturday I was out with a client, and we were looking at a property, and they were dazzled with the granite and stainless steel. And we go upstairs, it's a duplex, and we look in the bedrooms, and they're like, there's no bathroom on this level. So you will need to get up in the night and go down the flight of stairs, through the kitchen, past the living room, to get to the bathroom. Is that something that you're looking for? And they said, we never even thought of that.
Oh, wow.
And the listing broker isn't going to say, oh, by the way, there's no
Hey,
bathroom next to the bedroom.
Yeah, you got.
A healthy market, I guess it's 6 months worth of inventory.
That's our general benchmark. That's a balanced market.
And what are we really talking about for the listeners that don't know?
Sure. So what that refers to is if we're selling at the same pace that we've been selling, say, for the last 12 months, how long would it take to sell out of the inventory currently on the market?
Wow.
So if we look at, again, that lower end of the market with 2.5 months, that basically means that, we've got, say, 20 listings or so on the market, and typically we're selling, 8 a month, so they'll sell out in 2.5 months.
Gosh,
so
yeah.
the flip side of having a year and a half worth of inventory says that even if nothing else comes on the market and we sell at the same pace, it would take a year and a half to sell out of that inventory.
That's interesting. And one of the things that we talked about before we hit the air is that the low end market, the people that are first time home buyers or maybe just trying to move up that one echelon and be in the Concord and Lincoln area, they're up against some pretty big cash, and that's developers. Because they can tear down and build up. Let's talk about that for a minute.
That's definitely true, Rick, and it's a good thing to point out. Yeah, especially when we see, and gosh, we've seen houses torn down, and we've seen land purchases upwards of $1 million or $1.2 million in Concord. Developers.
Just land purchases.
That's right. 2 developers who are going to turn around, build the big house there, and sell it for 2 or 3 times what they're paying for the land. It hits certainly what we generally see as our first-time buyers at that $500,000, $600,000, $700,000 range the hardest, because they're typically the folks who are getting a mortgage. They are only putting 20-30% down or even less,
right?
And they're doing home inspections. They want to make sure they're buying a solid house, and maybe they're competing against 2 builders who make an all-cash offer, close in 30 days
Yeesh.
or 120 days if that's what the seller prefers, just so they can lock it up. They're not doing a home inspection. They don't really care at that point. So it's really difficult for those folks. And what we see overall is a reduction in that more affordable inventory in the town. I grew up there in the 70s and 80s, and you had a very dynamic population. You had blue-collar workers, you had the town police, you had school teachers that all lived in the community. Unfortunately, they've been priced out to a great degree because when that $600,000 house disappears, it doesn't come back.
Right. But one of the interesting points that we were talking about during the break was that the individual developer that's actually buying the $500,000-$600,000 tear down is putting those properties on the market at 1.2, 1.3, and upwards of like 1.8, and those are going relatively quickly. And that goes back to what Gary was talking about, this 70-30. 70% of your buyers don't want turnkey solutions, correct?
I would say it's at least 70% for us in Concord. Yeah, when they have the option to basically have a house that they can move right into, that they don't have to do any work to, or they don't have to hire anyone to do any work, they'll always take that over the house that needs a little bit of updating. And what that has led to, which I think is pretty interesting, is our old rule about location has, in my mind, turned more to condition and finish as a priority over location. So
interesting.
Somebody will buy a house for $1.8 million that's brand new in a neighborhood of $600,000 and $700,000 houses versus buying a fixer-upper in the best neighborhood in town for that same price point.
Do you think the reason behind that is and I want to be the devil's advocate here. It's more location, because they're actually taking a gamble on the fact that there are a lot of $500,000 and $600,000 properties there where developers are interested in tearing those down and building $1.8 million homes. I think that's what I would probably be thinking about going, I'm going to take that gamble.
It's an interesting, it's a very interesting way to look at it for sure, that maybe you're the first one, you're the trailblazer in the neighborhood by buying that new house.
What we say about Ollie's is the trailblazer.